Chapter 8 George Washington and the Fight for America. When war broke out, George Washington was put in charge of the American army. The soldiers were brave, but untrained. The army needed more weapons and won few battles. The British took the city of New York and chased the Americans south through New Jersey and across the Delaware River to Pennsylvania. Do you see George Washington on the image? He's sitting on the white horse. Untrained means that American soldiers had not been taught the skills needed to fight the British. Who was put in charge of the American army? Why did George Washington's soldiers win few battles? Winter arrived, and George Washington's men began to lose hope. They were cold and hungry, and some soldiers didn't even have coats or shoes. George Washington needed a plan. It was Christmas time, and George knew that the Redcoats in New Jersey would be celebrating on Christmas Day. If George made a surprise attack, he might win an important battle. To lose hope is to give up on the idea that things will get better. In a surprise attack in a war, one side attacks or starts a fight without warning or in an unexpected time or place. Why did George Washington's men begin to lose hope? What did George Washington decide to do and why? On Christmas night, George Washington decided to take his army across the Delaware River to attack the British in New Jersey. Just as his soldiers were about to get into their boats to cross the river, a snowstorm began. Soon it became difficult to see clearly. George Washington decided to cross the icy Delaware River first to give his men courage. Courage is the feeling that you can do something difficult or dangerous even though you're afraid. What did George Washington decide to do as part of his surprise attack? What happened just before the soldiers began to cross the river? What did George Washington do to give his men courage? The storm gave George Washington the chance he needed to surprise the British. By the time the American soldiers got to the British camp in Trenton, New Jersey, it was morning. But they still took the Redcoats by surprise. The British soldiers were not ready to fight the Americans. This was the victory George Washington and his men had hoped for. Took them by surprise means that the British had no idea the Americans were coming. The attack was unexpected, and the British were not ready to defend themselves. Do you see the cannon in the image? Cannons are very big guns, but instead of bullets, they fire cannonballs. A victory is a win. What did the storm help George Washington do? Who won the battle in New Jersey, the Americans or the British soldiers? The war did not end with the victory at Trenton. Many more years of fighting followed. In the end, America defeated the British, and George Washington became the first president of the United States, and Martha Washington, his wife, became the First Lady. Defeated means beaten in a fight. A president is the elected leader of a country. To be elected is to be chosen by a vote of the people. The First Lady is the wife of the President of the United States. The illustration on this page provides clues to what Americans in Revolutionary War times did during the day. Do you notice details about George Washington and his family? Do you see what each member of the family is doing? Do you see the clothing the family members are wearing? Do you see the white wig that George Washington is wearing? During colonial and Revolutionary War times, wigs were a way for men to show their job or importance. White wigs were usually worn by judges and military leaders. Women and girls wore caps to protect their hair. The caps also meant they didn't have to style or wash their hair every day. After the British were defeated, who became the first president of the United States? Who was Martha Washington? How did George Washington show courage at the Delaware River?